Commander Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship and looked down at Earth. The blue planet turned slowly below them, looking peaceful and beautiful. It was the year 2387, and humans had finally done what their grandparents only dreamed about. Earth was united under one government, and people were living on 12 different worlds among the stars. Jake had been in space for 15 years. He remembered when humans first met aliens and how excited everyone was. Now it seemed normal to work with different species from across the galaxy. His ship, the UES Liberty, was on patrol duty near the edge of human space. It was boring work, most of the time, but Jake knew it was important. Captain Lisa Parker had just come back from another peace meeting with the Zephyrian Collective. She was tired and looked worried as she walked into the meeting room. The Collective was a group of 7 alien species that controlled most of the outer space territories. For 50 years, humans had been friends with them, trading technology and materials while staying out of their way. Lisa sat down and rubbed her eyes. The latest meeting had not gone well. The Zephyrians were getting more demanding and less friendly. They wanted human technology but offered less and less in return. Some of their leaders had even suggested that humans were taking up too much space in the galaxy. Dr. Alan Brooks was the Federation's best expert on alien life. He had spent 30 years studying the different species in the Collective. The Zephyrians themselves were scary-looking creatures with hard shells and 4 arms. They loved war and thought fighting made them strong. The Vorthan were made of pure energy and could control electricity. The Kreks were like giant insects that all shared one mind. Together, these species had over 10,000 warships and ruled 40 star systems. What these aliens did not understand was something very important about humans. They thought humans were weak because they chose peace over war. They saw Earth's small defense fleet of only 300 ships and laughed. They thought humans were soft and easy to defeat. They were very wrong. Humans had not always been peaceful. Earth's history was full of terrible wars. People had fought with swords and spears, then guns and bombs, and finally with weapons that could destroy entire cities. Millions had died in wars that lasted for years. But humans had learned from their mistakes. They chose to build instead of destroy, to explore instead of conquer. Admiral Karen Hughes was in charge of Earth's defense forces. She was an old soldier who understood that peace was only possible when you were strong enough to protect it. For months, she had been warning the government that something bad was coming. Zephyrian ships had been testing human defenses, flying close to human worlds and scanning for weak spots. The politicians did not want to listen. They had enjoyed 50 years of peace and could not believe that their alien neighbors would attack them. President Daniel Carter was a good man who had spent his whole life working for peace. The idea that war might come again seemed impossible to him, but Admiral Hughes knew better. She had studied the reports from the border worlds. Human research stations were going silent without explanation. Trade ships were disappearing. Zephyrian patrols were asking too many questions about human military strength. All the signs pointed to one thing: the Collective was preparing for war. The attack came on a Tuesday morning Earth time. Jake Morrison was drinking coffee on his bridge when the emergency signals started coming in. At first, he thought it was a mistake. The reports were too terrible to believe. 5 human colonies had been attacked at the same time. Zephyrian fleets had come out of hyperspace without warning and started bombing the planets below. New Haven Colony was hit first. 450,000 people lived there, mostly farmers and their families. The Zephyrian ships destroyed everything from orbit. The colonists never had a chance to fight back or even run away. Within 2 hours, the entire world was burning. Prosperity Station was next. 320,000 miners and engineers died when the aliens blew up their space platforms. Freedom's Edge, humanity's newest colony, lost 680,000 people. Men, women, and children who had done nothing wrong except live on worlds that the Collective wanted. The alien message to Earth was simple and full of pride. They demanded that humans give them all their technology and become slaves within the Collective empire. If Earth refused, they promised to kill every human in the galaxy. They gave humanity 1 week to surrender, thinking that the weak humans would give up without a fight. President Carter received the message at 3 in the morning. He sat in his office reading the reports of millions of dead civilians and felt something change inside him. The peaceful man who had spent his life avoiding conflict realized that sometimes peace could only be protected by war. What the collective had done was wake up something that had been sleeping for over a century. They had poked the human bear, and now they were about to discover what happened when humans decided to fight. The aliens thought they knew everything about human nature, but they had only seen humans at peace. They were about to learn what humans were like at war. The sleeping giant was beginning to stir, and the galaxy would never be the same. President Daniel Carter could not sleep. He walked around his office at 4 a.m, reading the same terrible reports over and over again. 2 million humans were dead. Children, families, scientists, farmers, all killed by alien bombs from space. The peaceful leader who had never wanted to hurt anyone felt anger burning in his chest like fire. By 6 a.m, something happened that had not occurred for over 100 years. The Global Assembly met in emergency session. Every representative from every nation on Earth voted the same way. They passed the Emergency War Powers Act without a single vote against it. For the first time since Earth became united, humanity was going to war. General Nathan Cross had been enjoying his retirement on a farm in Kansas. He was 70 years old and had not worn a uniform in 15 years. His grandfather had fought in the last wars on Earth, back when humans still killed each other instead of working together. Cross understood something that most people had forgotten. Sometimes you had to fight to protect the things you loved. The old general arrived at Defense Headquarters 12 hours after the attacks. President Carter met him at the door, looking tired and scared. "Nathan, I need you to do something terrible," Carter said. "I need you to turn us back into killers." Cross looked at the reports and felt his old soldier instincts wake up. The aliens had given humanity 1 week to surrender. That was their first mistake. They thought humans would panic and give up. Instead, they had given Earth time to prepare for war. Dr. Susan Blake ran the Advanced Research Division. For 20 years, she had been working on weapons that were too dangerous to build during peacetime. Plasma cannons that could melt through the strongest armor. Quantum torpedoes that could pass through energy shields like they were not there. Something called Hell's Gate missiles that used antimatter to create explosions like tiny stars. President Carter had always refused to let her build these weapons. "We are not that kind of people anymore," he used to say. Now he called her into his office and said just 3 words: "Build them all." Captain Ryan Foster commanded a destroyer called the UES Vengeance. He watched in amazement as every factory on Earth and the Moon changed what they were making. Car companies started building weapons. Shipyards that made peaceful exploration vessels began creating warships designed for one purpose: to destroy humanity's enemies. The Luna shipyards were the biggest construction facility humans had ever built. For 50 years, they had made ships to explore space and carry families to new worlds. Now they worked day and night, building vessels that looked nothing like the peaceful ships they usually made. These new ships had thick armor and big guns. They were built to hunt and kill. But the real surprise was who came to help humanity fight. The Altarians had been humanity's first alien friends. They were peaceful traders who seemed to care only about making money. When the war started, they offered humanity something incredible: stealth technology that could make ships completely invisible to enemy sensors. The Nexar were strange beings who spent most of their time making art and thinking about philosophy. Most people thought they were harmless dreamers. When General Cross met with their leaders, he discovered they were actually brilliant military strategists who understood war better than anyone. The biggest shock was learning how strong humanity really was. The colonies that the collective had destroyed were just a tiny part of human civilization. Most humans lived in hidden places throughout the solar system: asteroid mining stations, underground cities, secret research bases that no alien had ever seen. In 1 week, the human fleet grew from 300 ships to over 1,500. New vessels launched from shipyards every few hours. Weapons factories that had been building tools for miners and farmers started making guns and bombs. The peaceful civilization that aliens thought was weak revealed its true industrial power. War leader Thex Kar was the most powerful Zephyrian commander. He led their biggest fleet and had conquered dozens of worlds. When he heard about humanity's war preparations, he laughed. "Let them build their little toys," he told his officers. "We will crush them like insects." Thexkar announced that the collective fleet would come to Earth in full force to end what he called this pathetic display of defiance. He commanded 12,000 warships, the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history. No species had ever survived when the full collective came for them. What Thexkar did not know was that General Cross had been studying collective tactics for decades. Cross knew how they liked to attack, what formations they used, and most importantly, what their weaknesses were. The plan he developed was simple but deadly. The collective thought they understood humans because they had met human diplomats and traders. They had seen humans at peace and assumed that was all humans could be. They had never seen humans at war. They did not know that Earth's history was written in the blood of every enemy that had ever threatened humanity's survival. Captain Lisa Parker watched the war preparations from her office and felt afraid, but not of the aliens. She was afraid of what humanity was becoming again. She had seen the old war movies and read the history books. She knew what humans were capable of when they stopped holding back. General Cross called his staff together for the final planning meeting. On the table was a map showing the collective fleet moving toward Earth. Around the table sat the best military minds humanity had produced, people who had studied war even during the long peace. "They think we are sheep," Cross said, quietly. "They are about to learn that humans are wolves who chose to eat grass. Now they have given us a reason to remember our teeth." The collective armada was the most frightening sight the galaxy had ever seen. 12,000 warships moved through space in perfect formation, heading straight for Earth. War leader Thexkar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion, and smiled with satisfaction. No enemy had ever faced such power and lived. Thexkar's intelligence officers told him that humans had built about 2,000 ships in their week of panic. He was actually impressed that the soft humans had managed to do even that much. It would make his victory more glorious. There was no honor in destroying an enemy that did not fight back. Captain Steve Mitchell commanded the human stealth ship UES Ghost Protocol. His vessel was hidden in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, completely invisible to collective sensors. 50 other stealth ships waited with him, using Altarian technology that was better than anything the aliens had ever seen. For 6 days, humanity had been broadcasting messages to the collective, begging for mercy and offering to surrender different technologies. The alien leaders listened to these messages and felt even more confident. The humans sounded desperate and afraid. They were clearly trying to buy time, but it would not help them. What the collective did not know was that every message was a lie. General Cross was using the negotiations to move his forces into position. While the aliens thought humans were panicking, Earth's military was setting the greatest trap in galactic history. Admiral Kelly Barnes commanded the main human fleet from her battleship, the UES Retribution. Her 2,000 ships waited near Earth's moon looking ready for battle. But they were just the visible part of humanity's strength. Hidden throughout the solar system were 3,000 more vessels, along with weapon platforms, automated defense drones, and surprises that would make the collective wish they had never heard of humans. The battle began exactly as General Cross had predicted. The collective fleet charged forward in their traditional wedge formation, confident that their numbers and technology would win the day. Their massive dreadnoughts opened fire at long range, sending plasma bolts and energy beams streaking across space toward the human fleet. What happened next destroyed every assumption the collective had about human capabilities. The human ships did not run away or scatter as expected. Instead, they accelerated directly toward the enemy fleet. Their new quantum phase armor absorbed the incoming energy attacks and redirected the power to their own weapons. Commander Bill Hayes piloted the fighter UES Hornet, leading the first wave of humanity's new assault craft. These were not the slow, clumsy fighters the collective expected. They were fast and agile, armed with microfusion torpedoes that could punch through battleship armor like paper. Within minutes, 3 collective dreadnoughts were floating wrecks. War leader Thexkar watched in confusion as his front line began to crumble. The human weapons were far more advanced than his intelligence reports had suggested, but he still had overwhelming numbers. He ordered his reserves forward, confident that sheer force would still carry the day. That was when the trap revealed itself. Stealth ships materialized throughout the collective formation, their weapons already charged and targeting critical enemy vessels. The aliens had no idea these ships were there until they started firing. Automated defense platforms emerged from asteroid hiding places, adding their firepower to the growing chaos. Captain Steve Mitchell targeted a collective command ship with his stealth vessel. The aliens never saw him coming. His quantum torpedoes tore through their shields and armor, destroying their communications center. All across the battlefield, similar attacks were happening as human stealth ships struck from the shadows, but the most devastating surprise was yet to come. Hell's Gate missiles launched from hidden positions throughout the solar system. These weapons used controlled antimatter explosions, creating miniature stars wherever they hit. Each missile could destroy an entire enemy squadron. The collective had never seen anything like them. Dr. Rachel Thompson monitored the battle from Earth's Defense Command Center. She watched the tactical display as collective formations broke apart in confusion. The aliens had made a fundamental mistake. They assumed that humanity's peaceful nature meant they were incapable of real warfare. They never considered that a species that had survived ice ages and their own violent history might be the most dangerous enemy possible. Thexkar's flagship shook as human weapons struck its shields. He could not believe what he was seeing. His invincible armada was being systematically destroyed by ships he had considered primitive. The humans were not just fighting back, they were winning. Commander Amy Rodriguez led a squadron of human destroyers against a group of Zephyrian cruisers. The aliens tried to use their superior speed and maneuverability, but the humans had studied their tactics for decades. Every move the collective made was anticipated and countered. It was like fighting an enemy who could read their minds. Tiwei. Fourth-hand energy beings tried to use their electromagnetic powers against the human ships, but the quantum phase armor made their attacks useless. The Krex hive mind found their perfect coordination disrupted by human quantum scramblers. Every advantage the collective thought they had was turned against them. After 3 hours of battle, the impossible had happened. The collective had lost over 4,000 ships while humanity's losses were less than 200. The greatest military force in galactic history was in full retreat, running from an enemy they had thought was weak and helpless. Thexkar ordered his remaining ships to retreat to their home systems. As his damaged flagship limped away from Earth, he realized the terrible truth. The humans had not just won a battle, they had revealed themselves as the galaxy's new dominant power. The sleeping giant was fully awake now, and it was very, very angry. The scattered remains of the collective fleet fled through space like frightened animals. But General Cross had no intention of letting them escape to rebuild their forces. The human counterattack began immediately. Fast pursuit squadrons chased the fleeing aliens, while the main fleet prepared for something the galaxy had never seen before, a human war of conquest. Captain Amy Rodriguez commanded the hunter-killer group called Pack Leader. Her job was simple, but deadly. Find every collective ship that had participated in murdering human civilians and destroy it. These were not mercy missions. They were extermination squads. No alien who had bombed human colonies would be allowed to live. 50 groups like Rodriguez's spread out across the galaxy, hunting down enemy ships that thought they had escaped. The humans moved with deadly purpose, appearing in star systems, throughout collective space. They were not attacking randomly like the aliens expected. Every strike was carefully planned to cause maximum damage to enemy military power. The collective leadership met in emergency sessions on their fortress worlds, finally beginning to understand how badly they had miscalculated. Reports flooded in of human forces appearing everywhere at once. These were not the slow, predictable attacks they expected from a species they considered inferior. The humans were striking with intelligence and precision that terrified the alien commanders. War leader Thexkar found himself defending his own homeworld of Zephyr Prime within just 1 week of his defeat at Earth. His remaining ships were outnumbered by the human fleet that appeared in his system. Numbers no longer gave him any comfort. He had learned that ships meant nothing when facing an enemy that could turn every advantage against you. Commander Jack Stevens led the assault on Zephyr Prime. Before the attack began, he broadcast a message to the planet below. "You chose to target our civilians. Now you face the consequences." The orbital bombardment that followed was precise and devastating. Human weapons destroyed military bases and weapons factories while carefully avoiding cities full of innocent people. The message was clear to everyone watching. Humans could have wiped out every city on Zephyr Prime, but they chose not to. They were showing restraint even in war. This time, but if the collective continued to fight, that mercy might not last forever. Dr. Kevin Moore led the Psychological Operations Division. He had studied each collective species for years, learning their fears and weaknesses. The human campaign was not just about winning battles, it was about breaking the enemy's will to fight by showing them that resistance was hopeless. The Vorthon energy beings discovered that their power to control electricity was useless against human quantum phase armor. Their most advanced weapons could not even scratch the human ships. The proud warriors who had terrorized other species for centuries found themselves helpless against human technology. The Krex hive minds had always believed their perfect coordination made them unbeatable. When humans used quantum scramblers to disrupt their collective consciousness, the insect-like aliens became confused and panicked. Their greatest strength became their greatest weakness in just seconds. The Zephyrians, who had started this war, learned what real warfare looked like when practiced by masters. Every tactic they tried had been anticipated. Every formation they used was countered. Every weapon they fired was neutralized. The humans fought like they could see the future. Within 6 months, the collective was falling apart. Member species began abandoning the alliance as each group tried to make separate peace deals with the advancing humans. The Altarians, humanity's original allies, offered to serve as go-betweens, though they made it clear that mercy would only be given to those who surrendered completely. Admiral Tony Clark commanded the human siege fleet around Unity Station, the collective's capital. His orders from Earth were simple and final. The war would continue until every species that had attacked human colonies surrendered without conditions. There would be no negotiations, no face-saving compromises, no mercy for murderers. Unity Station was the most powerful fortress in the galaxy. It housed the collective government and was defended by their most advanced weapons. The massive space station had never been successfully attacked in over 200 years. The aliens believed it was impossible to conquer. The siege lasted 3 months. Human engineers, led by Dr. Patricia Morgan, developed new weapons specifically for breaking through the station's defenses. Quantum mining charges that could bore through any armor. Gravity manipulators that could tear apart space stations. Most terrifying of all, temporal displacement weapons that could erase targets from existence completely. But the most devastating weapon humanity used was patience. They surrounded Unity Station and simply waited, letting the defenders think about their situation. Every day that passed, human forces grew stronger while collective resources ran out. Every day, more alien species abandoned the war and begged for peace. The psychological pressure was unbearable for the aliens inside the station. These beings had lived for centuries believing they were the rulers of the galaxy. Now they cowered behind their defenses, watching their empire crumble while a species they had dismissed as weak demonstrated technological superiority that made their own achievements look like toys. Food began running out on Unity Station. Power systems started failing. The defending aliens watched human ships patrol outside their windows, knowing that escape was impossible. Some aliens began to surrender individually, choosing exile over death. When Unity Station finally gave up, it marked the end of the collective as a galactic power. The proud alliance that had once controlled 40 star systems was broken and defeated. But for humanity, this was just the beginning of something new, a chance to reshape the galaxy according to human ideals of justice and protection for all thinking beings. The signing of the Unity Accords took place on the human flagship UES Sovereign. General Cross stood at the head of a long table, accepting the complete surrender of the former collective leadership. The terms were simple and could not be changed. Give up all weapons, pay for the murdered colonists, and accept human authority over all former collective territory. The alien leaders who signed the papers looked broken and defeated. War leader Thexkar, once the most feared commander in the galaxy, could barely hold the pen with his shaking claws. The Vorthon energy beings flickered weakly as they agreed to the terms. The Krex Queen spoke for her entire species when she accepted humanity's rule. President Carter addressed the galaxy from Earth's capital. His speech was broadcast on every frequency and translated into hundreds of languages. Even the most arrogant species in the galaxy stopped what they were doing to listen to what the human leader had to say. Humanity did not want this war. Carter began, his voice calm but filled with authority. We were happy to explore space, to trade with our neighbors, to learn from the different species among the stars. But when you chose to murder our people, to threaten our families, to treat us like prey, you woke up something that should have stayed asleep. You discovered why Earth's history is written in the blood of those who thought humans were weak. The new order that emerged from the war was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Humanity did not try to enslave or destroy their former enemies. Instead, they offered something revolutionary: real equality under human protection. Species that accepted human leadership found themselves defended by the galaxy's most powerful military, while being free to live their own lives under fair laws. Dr. Helen Wright became the first Governor General of the Outer Territories. She established a new way of ruling that amazed the alien species. Former collective worlds were rebuilt using human technology and knowledge. Their people enjoyed safety and prosperity they had never known under their old masters. The difference was obvious and intentional. Working with humans brought benefits that fighting them could never achieve. Captain Chris Murphy commanded the patrol cruiser UES Guardian. His ship protected trade routes that now spanned dozens of star systems, making sure that business and communication flowed freely throughout human space. Pirates and raiders who had once terrorized these regions found themselves facing opponents trained by humanity's greatest military minds. The Zephyrians, who had once ruled the collective with an iron fist, became humanity's most loyal friends. War leader Thexkar was given mercy in exchange for his knowledge about military strategy. He often told younger officers, "We thought we were warriors until we met real warriors. The humans showed us what true strength means." But perhaps the biggest change was in humanity itself. The sleeping giant had awakened, and while it chose to be kind in victory, it would never again be caught unprepared. Dr. Sarah Martinez led the new Strategic Defense Initiative, overseeing the construction of the most powerful military force in galactic history, not for conquest, but for protection. The galaxy's other major powers watched these developments with fear and respect. The Andromedian Empire had been planning to expand into former collective territory, but they quietly gave up those plans. The mysterious Void Walkers, ancient beings who had stayed out of galactic politics for thousands of years, sent ambassadors to establish formal relations with the Terran Federation. Admiral Frank Thompson now commanded the entire Terran space force. He followed a simple rule that guided all human military policy: peace through strength, strength through unity, and unity through understanding that we are all stronger together than apart. Life on the former collective worlds improved dramatically under human rule. The Zephyrian homeworld, once a military fortress where only warriors mattered, became a center of learning and culture. Zephyrian children who had been trained only for war now learned art, science, and philosophy alongside combat skills. The Vorthon energy beings found new purposes for their electrical powers. Instead of using them as weapons, they became the galaxy's best engineers, building amazing machines that helped terraforming new worlds. Their skills were valued and respected instead of feared. The Krex hive minds discovered that their ability to work together perfectly made them excellent at large construction projects. They built space stations and cities faster than anyone thought possible. Under human protection, They no longer had to worry about defending themselves and could focus on creation instead of destruction. Years later, historians would mark the collective war as the moment humanity truly joined the galactic community, not as just another member species but as natural leaders. The peaceful explorers who had left Earth seeking knowledge and friendship had been forced to show their true nature. In doing so, they created something unprecedented, a galactic civilization based on merit, protection of the innocent, and the understanding that real strength comes from wisdom about when force is necessary. The human bear had been provoked, and the galaxy had felt its claws. But more importantly, the galaxy learned that those same claws could protect as well as punish, build as well as destroy. The aliens who had thought humans were weak prey discovered they had awakened the galaxy's natural guardians. In the end, the collective's attack had an unexpected result. They had forced humanity to accept its destiny among the stars. The age of human expansion had begun, and it would reshape the galaxy forever, not through conquest or fear, but through the simple idea that all thinking beings deserved freedom, protection, and the chance to become their best selves. The galaxy was safer, stronger, and more united than it had ever been, and it would stay that way as long as humans remembered the lesson of the sleeping bear. Sometimes peace can only be protected by those willing to fight for it.